And so when I got home, I met my wife. She was in the room. She was lying down. I told her people to stay away, but I was almost late. We'll look at it and we'll get back to you. So that's how we left that environment. Not responding to the police, and they were just pushing back. They told me what happened at the airport. Immediately, I called my employers and said, see what's going on at the international airport. My mother-in-law. And she said, Uche, where are you? My name is Uchenna Naji. I am the second child of 4 siblings, 2 boys, 2 girls. I've got, of course, a dad and a mom. My dad is late. I'm a graduate of chemical engineering, and after graduation, I joined the bank. While I was in the bank, I met my wife. At that time, we were dating. You know, the bank policy was that couples can't work in the same bank. So I had to leave, and I moved over to Halliburton, to be precise, you know, considering my background as a chemical engineer. And I got married to my wife, Ifoma Naji, in November 2008. And thank God we are blessed with 3 lovely girls. And I mean, we had a wonderful marriage before she passed in precisely July 17, 2015. It was unexpected. I felt the world was just coming to an end all of a sudden. But like I said, we were a happy couple. We enjoyed life together, and of course, we had our ups and downs, but which was normal in you know, marriage. But we still made sure that we lived together, you know, happily, as you know we expect for couples. So on how did it happen? And on this particular day, I came back from work. She just gave birth to our 3-month-old, the girl, the last child from her, and she was 3 months old at the time. And when I came back from work at about, say, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., you know, I met my wife in the bathroom giving a bath, you know, to the baby. And I told her, I mean, we greeted ourselves, we hugged, welcome, and how was your day, and all of that. And I asked her, I told her that I was going to leave briefly to go have a haircut because I was going to make a trip to Nigeria the next day. And I left the house. And when I got to the salon, I got a call, you know, say about 10 minutes after I left the house, from the lady who was, or her relation who was living with us at the time. She was living with us, you know, as helping us with the kids. So I got a call from the lady by name Victoria, and she said, Uncle, my wife, my mommy, auntie is shouting her head. And I was like, this is someone who I just left the house, and I did not notice anything. She was healthy. We were talking. Give her the phone, and I spoke to her. I said, babe, what's going on? She said she just felt a sharp pain in her head that she doesn't know what it was. That I should please get her some Panadol. I'm coming back from the salon. I said, okay, I'll do that. And I actually wanted to leave the salon immediately, and as soon as I was leaving, I got a call from her mom, my mother-in-law, and she said, Uche, where are you? Please rush home. Rush, go back home. Ifoma seems to be in danger. I said, yes, mommy, calm down. I'm going, don't worry. You know, I just gave her that assurance that I was on my way. And so when I got home, I met my wife. She was in the room. She was lying down. And I said, honey, what happened? What happened to you? And she said she narrated the same thing. She felt a sharp pain. And I said, okay, do you still want should I get the paracetamol? And she took the medication, right? And she said she wanted to watch it overnight and see if it's something that we should probably think about going to the hospital. So she said she wants to watch it and let's see how she responds. I said, okay, fine. So we were, sitting down, she was lying down, and I got a call from her mom. And her mom said I should take her to the hospital, that it looks like blood pressure. I said, okay. I said, honey, let's go. Mommy thinks we should take you to the hospital. And I never knew that was the last day of her stay in that house. Or rather, that was going to be the last day. So I told the kids, I'm coming, let me take mommy to the hospital. We went to the hospital, and, she was there in the hospital. And this hospital actually is being managed by, or rather, it's being retained by my former, employers, right? And she got to the hospital, the doctor diagnosed her, the doctor gave her some medications to kind of like ease the pain and all of that, and put her on bed rest. And I told the doctor, okay, since she's on bed rest, let me rush home and just make sure the kids are fine. They're back on their beds, and I'll be back soon. So within 45 minutes, I went and came back. And when I came back to the hospital, I found out that my wife was put on oxygen. And I was like, what is going on? So the doctor said she felt the pain again. And they got the doctor to come over. They took her to the scanning room, and after a few minutes, they brought her back. Now, at this point, at that time, she was responding, she was talking, we were chatting, And so the doctor came and said, Mr. Naja, I want to see you. I said, okay, fine. I went to his office, and he told me that she has a bleed from her arteries, she has a bleed, her arteries, she has a bleed from her arteries, right? So I was like, so how did it happen? So they were asking, did she fall? Did she have any accident? I said, no. And the doctor came, met my wife, said the same thing, told her what was going on, asked the same questions. And my wife was like, this was what she was doing at that time, giving the baby a bath. And so the doctor said, okay, I need to get the brain surgeon to come over and recommend on what we need to do, what we had to do at that time. So the brain surgeon came. After about 30 minutes, he came, and my wife was still, she was just resting, but she wasn't, there was I didn't see any sign of panic. So the brain surgeon came, took her for another scan. And when he did his scan, he came back, and this time around he said I should come upstairs to, I think probably they have a different section. So I went to meet him, and he said, your wife just had a brain aneurysm. And I said, what's that? I've never heard of a brain aneurysm before. He said, yes, that it's a breakage of the artery and inflammation, and used some medical terms. And I said, okay, what are we supposed to do? And the doctor said she needs to go through a brain surgery. And I was like, I don't understand. A brain surgery? How? I just felt this wasn't just going to happen. But the doctor insisted that that's the only way we can get this done. And he tried to explain that what they're going to do is to do more like put a clip. I mean, doctors who are listening to me will understand, what I mean. But anyway, so, and all along I kept her mom, my mother-in-law, informed about what was going on. She was the one I was speaking with directly. And at the time, she suggested if my sister-in-law, who happens to be a doctor, if she could come to Abidjan to assist and help out. Well, at that time, I told her, you know what, don't bother, because I would need to go back home, try to book a flight ticket, and I couldn't leave my wife, So I told her the kids are fine, someone is at home, so I'll just keep you updated on what's going on, because I didn't want to leave her at that point. So they had the surgery, okay? And the surgery went, it was successful. She came out, it was probably, I think, 3-4 hours she was in the surgery room, and she came out. And the doctor, before the surgery, the doctor specifically told me, don't tell her she's going for a surgery. Because if I did, it would probably, she'll get, It should be probably panic, and it would worsen the whole situation. So I kept that away from her until she went for the surgery and she came out, and she was fine. The doctor invited me into she was placed under intensive care, so she was in the intensive care unit. So the doctor said I could come in to see her, and I saw my wife. She started talking and trying to be like, did I know that she was going for a surgery? I said, yes. So why didn't you tell me? I said, well, the doctor said I shouldn't tell you. She was just kind of like chatted about it, and she asked about the kids and all of that. And while she was there, she said she was hungry. I told her, okay, let me get the doctor or the nurse. The nurse came, and the nurse said, okay, she's going to eat, but not now. There are certain things they were watching. Of course, they know how, at the time, they know the right time she should, eat. So after probably an hour, they brought a meal for her to eat, and she ate. But the doctor did say something, or the nurse rather, said that please, they wouldn't want her to answer calls, and they just want her to rest. And so while she was eating, because her mom was also at the same time engaging me to get an update, I took a picture while she was eating, and I sent it to her mom. I said, Mommy, she's eating, she's doing fine, she's okay, there's no problem, let's just keep on praying for full recovery and all of that. And so after that moment, after she ate, we spoke for a few minutes, and I left, went back home. The next day, I came to see her, saw her in the morning, and while we were talking, she said she was feeling, something moving inside. She was just feeling some form of discomfort. So I felt, okay, probably it's just maybe the medication or the recovery process and all of that. So the doctor, of course, they were checking on her. She was in the intensive care unit. I was with her till went back home, came back, and in the evening I came back again and I went back home. The third day, in the morning, I went to drop my daughter in school, or rather, I think they were on holidays. She just had something in school that so I dropped her off, and on my way back to the hospital, I got a call, and the doctor called me and said, Mr. Naji, please, we need you in the hospital, it's important. And I said, what's the problem? What's going on? Is my wife okay? They said they cannot tell me anything on phone, I need to rush. So my driver took me straight to the hospital. As soon as he got to the car park, I went straight to her. In fact, I ran straight to the intensive care unit. I just went straight to her room, and I saw her on what I was now told life support at that time. Because I didn't see that the previous day. So when I saw her, she was on life support. And I broke down in tears. And I told the doctor, what happened to my wife? And I could see the expression on his face. He was shaking his head. And I said, what happened? So I was so confused. I was crying. They were holding me. And when they tried to calm me down, and I kind of like, okay, settled into that moment, the doctor said, that night, that night or early in the morning, they realized that her blood pressure had shot up. It was so high that it took her straight into coma. And I said, doctor, so what are we going to do? Are we going to do another surgery? What's going to happen? And the doctor was just shaking his head. And the doctor said, unfortunately, your wife is brain dead. So she said, the doctor said my wife was brain dead. And I said, why? How did it happen? What do you mean by brain dead? And so immediately I called my sister-in-law, Onyeka. And I told her, this is what's going on. Sorry, I'm just a bit emotional, but you know. So I told her what was going on. I told her everything, and you know, she tried to encourage me to stay strong. She gave me, someone spoke to me, I think her pastor, you know, trying to encourage me, and that was what was going on at that moment. So they asked me if I called my bosses, my employers to come over. They came to the hospital. They asked for if I had any relation that could come over. I said yes. My mother-in-law in Nigeria, you know, and my sister-in-law and all of that. So they brought them in. They came to Abidjan. Now, to cut the long story short, right, my wife was in coma for 2 days and she passed. Okay. And when she passed, my mother-in-law was around, my sister-in-law was around. Now, this is where it all changed. After she passed, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, we were all at home in Abidjan. Then we were, you know, being consoled. We were receiving visitors. People were just coming to console us. And so on this particular day, because she stayed with me for a week before she left for Lagos. But this is what happened. On this particular day, we were just sitting down in the living room, and she said, "Oh, what am I going to do? How are we going to handle these kids?" You know, she was just crying and, you know, being emotional about it. And I said, "Mommy, you know, I can't." Chigozie, she was 3 months old. That's my last daughter with, you know, my late wife. So I said, "Mommy, I think you have to go with Chigozie. Chamaka and Chisom, that's Chamaka is my first daughter, Chisom is my second daughter. They will stay with me because I need them to keep me company. But because I did not have the right resources to handle Chigozie at that time, I told Mommy to please, Mommy, go with her to Lagos. Probably after the funeral, I'll be able to come back for her. You know, by then I would have settled down and, you know, made sure, you know, I had the right resources to take care of her at that time." And that was it. And there was nothing wrong. She was okay with that. And we escorted her to the airport. She went to Lagos with my last daughter, Chigozie. Surprisingly and shockingly, as soon as she arrived in Lagos, the only information I was getting from them, my in-laws, was that I killed my wife. That they know that I killed my wife. That there was no way my wife would have been bleeding in the brain, that I must have smashed her head on the wall. And it came as a text message. And I replied and I said, "What are you? I did not do such a thing. Why are you?" So I tried to explain to them, yes, I don't beat my wife, because they kept on saying, in that text message, they said I was beating and hitting her in the stomach, I smashed her head. And when I got that information, or when I got that message, I just knew that something was wrong somewhere. And I just decided to be patient, to calm down, and just, you know, just move on with what was going on. I just felt probably it was just maybe emotional. They were just, you know, being emotional, but my assumption was, you know, proved wrong. So they told me I need to come to Lagos. I need to come to Lagos to tell them what happened to my wife. That it's their tradition. They are from Delta State, to be precise, or Gwashuku. So they said I need to come to Lagos. I must come to Lagos. So I was like, no problem. So I went to Lagos. Fortunately, my mom's based in the United States, but she was in Lagos at that time because of what was going on. And so I went to their house, and with few relations to their home in Lagos. And when we got there, it wasn't the kind of environment I was expecting. There were just lots of people inside the house, inside the compound. And we said, okay, probably they're having a meeting or so. So they had me sit down, had my family sit down somewhere under the canopy, And so when the meeting started, they asked, so Mr. Naji, a member of a relation of theirs, asked me and said, so can you tell us what happened to our daughter? That's my wife, So I stood up and I narrated everything that happened from the time we met at home while she was giving my daughter a bath up until the time she passed. Everything. And they asked me what caused that bleeding. I said, the doctor, I don't know what brain aneurysm is at that time. The doctor just told me it could be hereditary, it could be, it could just happen to anyone. That was how they described it. So that thing probably got them angry. I don't know, probably got them angry. But something that happened was that after I gave my speech, my mother-in-law spoke and started confronting me, alleging that I killed her, alleging that I have been beating my wife, hitting my wife, that I'm not going to go scot-free. And in that moment, I must say I was angry. I pushed back on that allegation, and that angered her people, right? And immediately I was about to be lynched. Let me put it that way. So while it was going on, my mother-in-law quickly pushed me into their security post just to, keep me there for safety, and told them to stay away. Told her people to stay away, but I was almost lynched. So when I came out, when everything calmed down, everybody was kind of like, okay, let's resume our discussion. So I came out from that security post, and my in-laws, my family members told me that please I should just go and apologize. Probably they were angry with the way I reacted, and I said, okay, that's fine. But I was just not happy with what the comments, my mother-in-law was saying. So I went in front of my mother-in-law and I told them I was sorry for sounding that way, and that was it. While I was making that apology, they told me I should lie down on the floor. And I lay down. This was more like, you're in the lion's den, just do whatever they say. So I lay down on the floor. While I lay down on the floor, somebody hit me on the head, and I remember my father-in-law was like, don't touch him, don't touch him. So I lay down on the floor, and I just, after they did all the talks and all of that, they asked me to stand up. And they said, the spokesman in their clan or whatever said, we're going to give you 3 conditions for peace. 3 conditions. And while I was standing, they said, number 1, I'm going to hand over all the children. They had one already. The one I released, I gave to my grandmother, my mother-in-law, that I should bring the other 2 and hand them over to my mother-in-law. And they would tell me how much I'll be sending for their upkeep. Number 2 condition, I had a plot of land somewhere in Aja, Shangotedo at that time, and they said I must bury my wife on that plot of land. And number 3 condition, I will give them 20 million naira. So of course, I wasn't at that moment. I didn't have the courage to start pushing back. So my uncle stood up and said, "Okay, we've heard, no problem. Let's go back. We'll look at it and we'll get back to you." So that's how we left that environment. And from then on, it was all about the allegation that I killed my wife. I now informed my father-in-law. I went back to Abidjan and I called my father-in-law. I said, you know what? I want us to do an autopsy. Maybe that's going to clear everyone's mind. So I want us to do an autopsy. And he said, no problem. Yes, let's do an autopsy. I said, okay, that's fine. And so I started, her body was still in the mortuary in Abidjan. So there are a lot of paperwork that they had to do the government of Abidjan, the health, medical health facility or organization, before they ship the body back to Nigeria. So that was going on, and I was making contacts on how we can go about the autopsy. So I spoke to my elder brother, and he had to go to Lut at that time to request on the, how the procedures, what was the process like. So they gave him a brief of how it's done. So at the end of the day, the doctor had told us that if it's a family dispute, that what they recommend is both families need to have a representative while the autopsy, was being done, and preferably a doctor. So not just a representative, but preferably a doctor. I said, okay, fine. I passed this information to them, that this is what the doctor is saying and all of that. And of course, I've never done an autopsy before. I called my uncle, who is a doctor, to please, this is what they are requesting for, can you stand in? But he's based in Ebonyi State, so he was not in Lagos. So he couldn't make that trip. So he referred us to someone in Abuja, a friend of his, who was a resident in Abuja, who is also a doctor. And I made contact. My brother actually made contact with him, and he was ready to stand in for us. And I was expecting them to also get their own representative, right? So when this whole process was going on, my wife's corpse the shipment of my wife's corpse was being processed. And when we got the approval to, ship her body to Lagos, I filled out all the documentation, the destination it should be going to, which was Lut, and this process of shipment was being handled by my employers. They were the ones that provided, of course, it's part of my benefits, right? So they handled the shipment of the body, all the logistics and all of that. So they moved on the day the body was scheduled to be moved to Lagos. I called through my uncle. I told him to tell them that, the body was going to be coming on, and it then was Arik Airline on, so and so day and time. I gave them all the details, the flight itinerary. So I was supposed to come with my wife's body on the same plane, but I got a relation of mine advised that no, go with the second flight, because with what happened in their home, you wouldn't want to expose yourself like that. I said, okay, fine. So I had a church member who escorted my wife's body on that Arik, yeah, it was Arik Airline, but so on that Arik flight. When they got to the airport, and I had assigned my uncle to take possession of the body and move the body to Lut. So my uncle was there with, I think, two of his two other relations were at the airport waiting for my wife's body. He called me and said, that Uche, I can see your father-in-law with some group of people standing around. I said, yes. I told them they know that the body's arriving, so I'm not surprised they'll be there. Probably they are there to also, receive the body, so there shouldn't be any problem. So they said, but the people that are standing with him, they look, he was panicking, somehow. So I said, okay, fine, let's see. So when the body arrived, as soon as they brought my late wife's casket, my father-in-law and the group of men that came with him just stormed the area at the international airport, Lagos, stormed the area and took the body away. With the casket, with the ambulance that was rented by my employers, and took the body away. And in fact, my uncle said he ran away because they were actually ready for more like a fight or something. So he didn't want to get himself involved, so he ran. They took the body, and immediately, of course, I got a call that they told me what happened at the airport. Immediately, I called my employers and said, see what's going on at the international airport. My in-laws have taken my wife's body. So they took it up, they called the law enforcement, made some few calls. While the driver, of course, they hijacked the vehicle, so while they were driving, and this was what I was told, after the whole event. The driver said his boss called him while he was driving, and he told his boss was like, "What's going on? What's going on? Where trying to get what was, because he had been called. My employers had called him to tell him what was going on at the airport. So he called his driver, and his driver was like, yeah, so these the family members are here. We are coming down to Lagos Island mortuary. That's where we're going. They were not going to loot again. The plan was to go to loot. So they went to Lagos Island. They were going to Lagos Island mortuary. Fortunately, the owner of that ambulance service, his office is not too far from that mortuary. So he quickly went to the mortuary facility, and he informed the guys, the mortuary guys who were receiving the corpse there, and told them that, listen, there is a body that is coming. Cooperate, receive it. We need to take back custody of that body because this was what happened, this was what happened, this was what happened. Okay? So when they brought the corpse to the mortuary, my late wife's brother was the one who signed in or filled the document, more like, and they deposited the body in that mortuary. So when I got a call that they had received the body, I told my employers, and that was how we took custody of that body. The next day, my in-laws went back to the mortuary, and it looks like they wanted to take the body. I don't know what they wanted to do, and they did not give them access, right, at that time. So they were shocked, and of course, they told them that, they need to go take permission from Uchenna, the husband. Of course, they knew there was a problem, right? They knew there was a problem at that time. Anyway, and so it became I had to write a petition on that, on what transpired at the airport. I wrote a petition, and of course it became a police matter. And the police took over the case, right? So the police invited me to come over to Abuja to write my statement. And I came. I wrote my statement. This is what happened. This is what happened, and all of that. And of course, they had to receive their own statement. My in-laws, my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. So they were invited to Abuja, but they never went. They said they were not strong. They had the little baby they had to take care of, so they can't make the trip. They gave a lot of excuses. And so the officer said, okay, fine. Let me come over to Lagos and take your statement. Let me come over to Lagos and take your statement. And they were trying to, push back on that. At the end of the day, the officer said, okay, the officers or the police, they decided that they were going to do the autopsy. And I remember this autopsy was supposed to be done in December before Christmas at the time. That was 2015. And so they said they were going to do the autopsy, and they were making plans for the autopsy and all of that to be done in Lagos. At the end of the day, while we were making this plan, or while this plan was ongoing, I got a call from my boss. Then I was still in Abidjan. I got a call and of course, when I heard the news about the whole fracas that happened at the airport, I didn't take that flight again to Lagos, so I remained in Abidjan, right? So, I got a call from my boss, and he said, Uchenna, what's going on? I said, what is it, sir? He said, there are documents that are being pasted on the gate, on the company gate. And the document has your name and all. I said, what document is that? It says it looks like a legal, some legal documents. I was confused. I was like, okay. He said, please, I need you to come over to Lagos because it looks like that. So he got an extract of the document, and it read more like this is an alleged murder of Mrs. Ifeoma Naji and all of that. And I was like, so they have gone to court. They have sued me for murder. No wonder they were not responding to the police, and they were just pushing back. So everything just added up at that time. So I flew to Lagos. I met my boss, and he gave me the document. I said, okay. I got my lawyer. He looked at it. He said, okay, fine, we'll respond. That was how the legal battle started. That was how the legal battle started. Remember, they had my last child. And even before receiving those legal court documents, I was sending monthly support funds for the upkeep of my child, despite what was going on.
Did she tell you this time the cause of the miscarriage?
Yes, she told us that if anything should happen to her, that we should hold Uchenna Naji responsible, that Uchenna Naji wants to kill her. When she was saying it, I was there, my husband was there, my other daughter too was there. She was crying, and she told us that she just got a miscarriage again, and now that she can no longer hide Uchenna Naji. That first one she came to Lagos, that he was responsible. He accused her of making an expensive hair, that the hair she made was too expensive, and she was
but she was a banker now.
She was a banker, and she was even the head of customer service.
So she was earning well.
She was earning well. It was her money.
It was her money.
It was her money. Several times I have settled the issue of her of money. Monetary issue. And
all right, so I want to share this chat message my mother-in-law had with my late wife, her daughter, on the 29th of May 2015. Now this was less than 2 months before she passed. Now recall that she has always said, and she has continued, and she's still saying, that I was maltreating her, I was beating her, I was kicking her in the stomach, I was hitting her head on the wall. They were very specific on the form of maltreatment, but it was just, I was brutal. That's what they are alleging. I was brutal to my wife. And when these allegations were being thrown at me, I just decided one day, you know what, I need to go check my wife's phone. Is there anything she's been saying to her mom that I'm not aware of? Because I knew nothing of such happened. But out of curiosity, I had her phone, so I had her password, and I just logged in, and I began to go through her messages, her chats with her mom, her siblings, and there was no indication, nothing to suggest any form of maltreatment. But while I was going through her mobile, while I was going through the chat message, I stumbled on this chat that she had with her mom on the 29th of May 2015. Like I said, this was less than 2 months before she passed. And let me just read it. It started with my late wife. So my late wife said, "Hello, mommy. Good morning." Let me first of all say that this chat was a chat. So my mother-in-law was she was planning to come over to Abidjan for the Omugwo, right? So my late wife was sent her a list of items she should come with. So this is what she said. She said, "Hello, mommy. Good morning. Hope you slept well. the things I need. So there's a list of items she put down here, ogbono, banga spice, ogi, crayfish and all of that. So her mom replied, Ifoma, how was your night? And she continued, please, I want to know, why is it that your mates try as much as possible to collect money from their husbands to take care of their parents and siblings? Your own case is different. She went further. You always send little amount and then start making long lists. She went further. What impression are you trying to create for your husband? She continued, that you are protecting his money at the expense of your own parents. Why did you change so much since you got married? Then my late wife stepped in. My late wife said, Mommy, please, I send money for you to buy me things at a moment. If I remember more, it's not a crime. I have said I will send money for the bed. So her mom replied, are we not entitled to benefit from your marriage? It's not just me. Everybody in the family has the same feeling that you have greatly changed since you got married. Then my wife replied, they are all entitled to their opinions. It doesn't affect me. So her mom replied, fine, but we can't be all wrong. Then my wife replied, since I got married or since I stopped working, please let's get our facts right. Then her mom replied, since you got married and it became worse since you stopped working. Then she continued, you are the one telling your husband how to attend to us, how much peanuts to give us, not minding our status in life and so on. Then my late wife replied, Mommy, I'm getting upset by your allegations because they are false. Then her mom replied, the earlier you adjust, the better. As your mother, I must tell you the truth if others can't. Then my late wife replied, with all due respect, nobody in our family is begging. You are working. Daddy has a business and my siblings are working and should fend for themselves. Then her mom replied, try and interact with your friends and hear how their husbands treat their people and compare. Then my late wife replied, my husband has not maltreated anybody. He is saving for his nuclear family needs. There is minimal job security where he works. Read the papers, Google and know how many people Schlumberger has sacked this year alone. I don't have a job, even money to further my education, no day. Then her mom replied, if we were beggars, you will not get to where you are today. God will not allow us to be beggars, never. But let's do things the right way so that things will be the way they should be. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Then my late wife replied, his own mother asked him for money. He couldn't give her. She asked for $3,000 between him and his brother. My husband had only $300. That's all he could afford. They didn't tell me. I just stumbled it on the conversation. Then her mom replied, when you people, now listen, she said, when you people were earning in Naira, the same talk. You started earning in dollars, the same talk. Haba, when are we going to breathe fresh air from our big son? She called me big son in this chat. Big son and daughter. So my late wife replied, his mom spent $2,500 on us. This time I went to deliver. And there will be no refund. That's why she's doing several jobs in a day. 3 jobs in a day. So her mom replied, if I'm a live long story and change, Nigeria is changing today. This is a chat she had. This is a chat between Mrs. Adigwe and her daughter, my late wife. And this is the same woman who is now promoting that I have been maltreating, I was brutal to my late wife. Now, looking at this, reading through this chat, if my wife was being brutalized, she's not going to respond or defend me like this. She's not going to respond in this manner. And also, if I was brutal to my late wife, which Mrs. Adigwe claims she's aware, she's not going to start asking her daughter how to collect, or tutoring her daughter how to collect money from me to send to them. And in this same chat, she called me big son and daughter. So how can you marry those two, those two issues of me being brutal to my late wife And then at the same time, less than 2 months before she passed, you're asking her to learn from her mates how to collect money from your husband and send to them. So this is just damning and embarrassing. She also had a chat with me when my wife was in the hospital during the surgery, and she sent me. We were chatting all through. In fact, all through the time my wife was in the surgery room, I was chatting with Mrs. Agony. She was responding, and it's a long chat, but it's all here. She was sending me prayer verses to be strong, that God was going to do it, that nothing was going to happen to her, to my wife, that I should be strong. She was asking for updates. She was, it was just, we were just encouraging ourselves while my wife was in the surgery room. So my question is, at what point did she now make her conclusion that I have been brutal to my wife?